Hello and welcome to Tea Talks. I'm your host Yasmine Tanres, and I want you to grab a cup of tea or your favorite beverage and join me in conversations with today's most influential personalities and thought leaders from across the world while we explore their opinions, journey, and passions. From the art of negotiation to the gamification of relationships and how to maximize your purest potential, you'll be sure to feel informed, engaged, and inspired. So let's take a sip and dive right into it. Cheers! Joining me here today on Tea Talks, we have a phenomenal, such a beautiful and energetic bunny, I must say, actress who's Asian American. You can see her on the TV series of Jane the Virgin, Goliath, Good Trouble, which is hilarious, the short film Puppies, and on the much anticipated movie of 2020, but of course 2020 has been cancelled, so been pushed to 2021, Top Gun Maverick. I've got Kara Wang here. How are you today?
I'm so good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining us here. It's so great to see you in this time. Of course, I've got to ask you before we dive into it. Cheers. What tea are you having? What's your go-to drink?
Cheers. Oh my God, your teacup and saucer are so classy.
You know me, the Brit has got to come out. Got to keep it classy.
Like that, very posh, very classy, very proper. Mine is from Target. It's fine.
But it's a great size. You get a lot more in there than this little meager thing.
True. That was always my thing with so I used to go to high tea a lot in Hong Kong, and I feel like the teacups are too small. But you know, then again, Americans are kind of excessive, and
they like everything extra
larger. So probably you guys look at us and are like Neanderthals.
Exactly.
But I will say it is nice to sip like a really nice tea from like a very delicate cup. It almost like, you know, not necessarily adds to the flavor, but adds to the experience.
Yeah, for the look. So what are you drinking in there?
I am having a chrysanthemum tea. Which are, you know, little chrysanthemum flowers. And I get this from Hangzhou, which is where my parents are from in China. So every time I go back there, I get a shit ton of it and bring it back.
I'm so fascinated, okay, and this is one of the things that, you know, we met on set of Puppies, and I was just so intrigued by you because you're speaking Chinese, like you speak it fluently, Mandarin, and forgive me if I butcher where you're from, Hangzhou?
Hangzhou. Yeah, close.
Go? Okay, we're going to get into that as well. You're going to teach me a little bit of Chinese here so all the audiences can like learn a little bit later on as well. But it's so cool to know how you've really still kept in touch with your roots. And now I'm seeing this with your tea as well. And what is this tea even? Because it's something that I've never heard of. And what are the benefits? Because Chinese have got these incredible like health benefits in terms of teas and herbal remedies. So what is that exactly?
I like the chrysanthemum tea because it's super light. So it's obviously a floral tea. There's no caffeine in it. And it's, they usually say, so chrysanthemum in Chinese is 菊花.
菊花.
Exact, perfect. You're brilliant already. 菊花. And so 菊花, they say the properties for it are like very cooling. It helps with, what is the word? It's like just like
to regulate the temperature within your body.
Yeah, exactly. God, I'm like speaking Chinese. I've lost my English completely. It's detoxifying. There we go. It's like detoxifying, very just a light tea, and it's like, yeah.
So you typically don't drink any caffeine? You're like
I do. I have coffee in the morning. I have to have my coffee in the morning. So I've already had that. This is my afternoon tea.
Okay, so here's the thing. Like, I was always curious because I found that some people who do not drink any caffeine, they're naturally so switched on. And I felt the first time I met you, I was like, oh my God, she's so switched on and just incredible to be around. Like, you really just interacted with everybody on set and just like really connected with everybody too. And you exude such great energy. And you know, I know. Okay, so we're diving into your journey here. You're from Nevada, but you moved to LA at the age of 5. And you've been in performing arts since a very young age, like 6 years old.
And then
sorry, excuse, this is just the Zoom world now. My dog is like,
oh my god, I was just
growling. If you can hear her, she's like growling her ass off. I'm like, really?
Reese's?
This is Reese's. I know. I'm like, she's always quiet when I'm not doing anything, and now when I actually need to be, we're being recorded. Pretty girl, you're literally making me look terrible. You're making me look terrible.
I know you're a foodie, and so I was like wondering, did you call Reese's because you love Reese's so much?
She was named after the chocolate actually because of her color. But I'm so sorry, I totally interrupted.
You're totally fine. And this is one of the first things that you also were asking me about. Remember, like relationship stages and all that in LA, and you were like, my love of my life is Reese's.
Sounds about right. Definitely sounds right.
Well, so yeah, so you did get into the performing arts and theater since a very young age. You even signed with the agent at the age of 18. But then you moved over to Asia, Hong Kong and Beijing, and that was partly because at the time you mentioned in an interview that there weren't so many opportunities for like people of your look being Asian American, and then going over to Asia, there was a lot more going on. So I'm curious to know what has shifted within the industry for, like, let's just say, first of all, like from going over to Asia, what was it like working and living over there and the film and TV industry versus when you came back to Hollywood?
Yeah, it's so interesting. Oh my God, Yasmine, you have done so much research. Everything you said was absolutely fact. Absolute fact, absolute truth and fact. Yeah, so like you said, I started off so early, and I've always known that I have loved the performing arts, and I was always involved in like either musical theater or choir or dance or whatever it may be. And I did sign my first agent in high school, and I started auditioning. And so I was auditioning throughout high school and college while still staying really active in, because I was a theater major, so I was doing shows at school as well. But while I was auditioning, yeah, like the types of roles were very limited. So don't forget, this was back in 2005 to 2010, right? Oh God, that's 15 years ago. That's absolutely insane.
It doesn't even sound that way, but it's been a while. But
it's been over a decade. That's absolutely terrifying. But you know, back then it was a lot of either Asian best friend, like in high school or college, who's like super nerdy, who either speaks broken English, or you're like the nail salon girl who like has a thick accent and is always a co-star, as in, you know, it's less than 5 lines, and you know, all of these, you know, sort of roles that we grew up watching on television, because truly that's all there was. You know, there were no 3-dimensional fleshed out characters for specifically Asian women, unless they were, as we've also seen, hypersexualized, right? Like Asian men and Asian women sort of deal with 2 different sides of the coin. One is demasculinized and one is like hypersexualized, right? So I focused a lot on school and doing a lot of theater and stuff. And my parents at this point had moved to Hong Kong. So I would visit my parents during summer and winter break. And while I was over there one year, I was like, oh, like, let's just see, like, I'll take some meetings. Let's see what happens. So I met up with a couple of production companies, and there was a company that was interested in signing me. So at this point I was in college, and I mean, I think back on it now, I'm like, God, Kara, you were so ballsy. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do it now. I mean, I would, but I wouldn't. Like back then I was only 17, because I started college at 17, and I got this production deal, and I was sort of just like, yeah, like, fine. Yeah, like, why not? Let's do it. Because the contracts in Asia are very long. They typically span from 8 to 15 years. So you're signing away basically your whole youth, you know? And so I had signed an 8-year contract, and I guess in my head, I graduated college at 19. I was like, oh, even if I go through the whole run of my contract, I'll come back at 27, which is not crazy. Like, I would still be young. You know what? I'm just going to go do it. Because like you were saying, like, there just was such a lack of roles. And I was like, I'm ready to go over there and play either the lead or the second lead or the villain or the supporting or the co-star or whatever it may be, you know, but at least have an opportunity to go out for all different types of roles, you know? So I ended up moving to Hong Kong, and I was in Hong Kong for 1 year and Beijing for 4 years. And it was such a like great experience. I mean, I think back to it now and I'm like, wow, it seems like a whole different lifetime ago. once again, like I said, I'm like, I was so ballsy. I moved over when I was 19, didn't know a single person, and just did it. I mean, I honestly feel like I sound very brave, but I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Like 100%.
So I love that, you know, because it's like, I don't know what it is. As we grow up, we're like eager to become adults. And then we just kind of like, because I guess we haven't experienced as much in life, we're just like, why not? What have you got to lose? You've only got to gain. And but it is ballsy. It is ballsy to go across the world and not knowing anybody and just trying it on your own. So that's a huge thing. That's really courageous. I gotta commend you for that. And
I mean, we were just so much more fearless when we were younger. I think everybody, you know, it's almost like as you get older, things seem like there's so much more at stake, which make us more fearful, which make us less like, you know, risk takers in a way, which is, I mean, I would kill for some of that like fearlessness I have.
You still got it in you. I know it's still in there. Since it's always going to be there.
Yeah.
So what was the you know, you ended up being there then shorter than 8 years though, or?
I did. So I ended up getting out of my contract a little early, which thank God for me, because I don't know if you've heard about some of these contracts in like Korea or China or whatever. Some of these artists get stuck in their really long-term contracts and they can't leave. But I was really lucky that I had a really good relationship with my management production company. And I basically was like, you know, I'm not going to finish this. Like, I know eventually I'm going to go back to the States. And it probably will be earlier than 8 years. So they ended up releasing me, which was really nice.
Is it one of those things where it's an exclusive contract as well? So it's not just, you know, it's not just the amount of time, but it's also exclusive to whatever project you're beholden to?
Yes, absolutely. The contracts in Asia were fully exclusive. Like not control is a terrible word, but really they had, you know, sort of stakes in everything in an artist's life. So any type of work you do, whether it be theatrical, commercial, or, you know, brand ambassadorship, or, you know, singing or whatever, basically across the board, anything you do. Yeah.
It's interesting because, you know, you hear and read these stories of like, let me use as an example, Aladdin, the lead male actor of Aladdin. He, you know, had played this phenomenal role and then had posted on social media speaking about how after that, he struggled to land another role.
Yeah,
and so,
I remember that.
I start, you know, it is a push and pull type industry where you've got to keep on fighting and you cannot let yourself be demoralized by not securing something straight away and having to go out there for multiple auditions and such. So comparing that then to Asia, because for one, it sounds like you're being really tied for so long, but then on the other hand, it sounds like you also have that sense of security, knowing that you are tied for those 8 years. But do you get a consistent influx of jobs? Does that at least supply you with that? And
well, you know,
still the same today?
Yeah, it's very interesting because I feel like obviously everybody's experience is different. As you know, I'm sure if you talk to any actor in LA, everybody's experience is kind of different. Like how they got their agent, are they auditioning a lot? Did they book any work? How did they go about all of that? And I think in Asia, it is very similar, even though when I was there, like I said, it was a decade ago. So things have changed a lot since then, I've heard. But back then, it almost operated sort of like old Hollywood did. Like you would sign to a production house, and like you said, the idea is that you would have some sort of safety and guarantee, because the idea is that the production company would put their talent in their productions. So the idea was that there was some safety. And my first year in Hong Kong, I struggled a lot because I don't speak Cantonese very well. I only speak it very basic. I speak native fluency Mandarin, but Hong Kong back then especially was still, you know, very much Cantonese driven. And so I didn't really book any work. And then they opened up a branch in Beijing, and I ended up going to Beijing, which is why I was there for 4 years. And I booked a ton of work. But the way things worked back then, like I said, it might be different now. Auditions really didn't exist in China. You just had a lot of meetings. So it was a lot of like meeting the director and talking to them like this, but no line reads, no like auditioning, no sides, no like any of that.
It really sounds like sort of game of likability factor, or just
totally. You know. And also Totally. And China is such a connection-based society. So it's all about who your agents are. If somebody knows somebody and then they recommend you, and then suddenly it's like, okay, let's give her a shot, and then she's in it, you know? And yeah, it seems like, looking from the outside, if you're not used to that structure, it seems really chaotic, but it's actually very organized chaos. Like, they have their own structure. And like, for example, Hollywood has a very, very strict structure, you know, of how it goes. The agents get the breakdowns, they submit their talent, they go through auditions, callbacks, producer, testing, you get it, network approved, right? Yeah, it's like a very, very step-by-step sort of process. And China has one too. It just is a little bit more fluid. But like I said, I've heard that things have changed a lot in the last 10 years, and they are probably establishing a stronger and more stringent structure as the years go on, is my guess.
Would you ever go back? Would you consider going back?
Yeah, it's so interesting because, so sort of how what we were talking about, how I felt like while I was here, I was feeling a limitation on the types of roles that I could even have an opportunity to go out for. There was a different type of limitation in China. So the interesting thing is, I feel like obviously when I'm here, even though I was born and raised here and I'm American, you know, we walk out on the street and people are like, oh, she's Asian. When I was in China though, because I was born and raised here, people always knew that I wasn't from China, you know, whether it be the way I carried myself or what I wore or how I did my makeup or all of that stuff, even if my Mandarin is perfect, right? So there was a limitation on roles because they also didn't see me as the lead type of Chinese female that they're used to, because they're almost used to this like very, like their standards of beauty are different. I mean, it was very interesting. And yeah, it just was one of those, yeah, like penguin, you don't belong on water, you don't belong on land, because over here I'm constantly fighting for China and Asian representation. And then while I was in China, I mean, when people talk shit about America, I get really riled up. Then I'm like standing up for America and all of these things. It's like, you can't win.
It's like you're in this in-between world. And there's, you know, you're a part of everything. You're a part of both worlds.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Like there's a lot more people that can relate to that than what is really being represented. And I mean, of course, over the past couple of years, we've seen, you know, films like Crazy Rich Asians come along. And so that's been great in terms of, you know, putting more Asians on the screen and having better like roles. But there's still that sort of conflict of what is known or traditional as such. And
totally.
You know, to put people in that position so that people don't feel alienated, though I think that most people wouldn't, because there's a lot more mixing going on in the world than before. I mean,
absolutely. I mean, we've definitely come a long way. And like you said, mentioning Crazy Rich Asians, obviously that was a very specific turn, I think, in like we'll look back on this during film history and all of that stuff and be like, oh, that there was a specific switch that happened when that movie came out, you know, pre and post. But that was actually one of the main reasons why I decided to come back from China. Like I said, I was very, very grateful. I worked a ton in Asia, and, you know, the dream is always just to be a working actress, right? So I did work a ton, and there was a lot of really great projects that I was really proud of. But when I came back, I realized I came back for a visit. Actually, that's how it happened. I came back for a month with one suitcase, thinking I was going to come back for pilot season, and I just ended up staying and never went back.
And that's when you probably had felt the slight shift and sort of
totally
time that it was time to be back here. That
100%.
The West was ready for more diversity and different people in different roles.
100%. I totally felt like it was the cusp of now is the important time for Asian Americans to be fighting for Asian American visibility specifically, you know, because this whole juxtaposition of, yes, I'm very, very connected to my roots and my culture, and my parents are very traditionally Chinese, and I have that connection there, but I also very much identify as being American. But any identity that is hyphenated, you know, in America, I mean, I'm sure can relate to it. It's like it's African American, Asian American, Latinx American, whatever. We deal with this very interesting, you know, identity crisis almost of, once again, having to represent both sides and yet also representing it as a whole because it stands as itself. Like Asian American is also an identity in itself. you know, that Asians don't understand and Americans don't understand because it's uniquely our experience, you know?
I definitely feel like in this time, you know, we've been seeing the movement of BLM, and then, you know, other minorities rising up as well. So you also have the Asian American Girls Club. So these are, honestly,
that is the shirt I'm wearing.
Oh, there you go.
Yes, it is. Asian American Girl Club.
I think that's the last time we bumped into each other as well. Wasn't it the Asian American Girls Club? They had an event going on at the Wing.
Oh, the Wing. That's right.
Yes.
That's right. I did see you there.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's great, and it just comes to show how vital these kind of groups are in order to bring greater awareness as to what group of people there are out there that are being not ignored, I want to say, but just not seen.
Yes, not seen. Mm-hmm.
So I want to go into the fact that, of course, you've landed a huge role. Well, it's a really huge opportunity. It's great to know that you're on such a big film that's just, you know, for many years has been anticipated for, and Top Gun Maverick, of course. You got to tell us a little bit more about what that experience was like. How did you land the role, and how did you feel when you first came to know that you were going to be in this film?
Yeah, so for sure, 100% by far the biggest credit I've ever have on my resume, for sure. Like you said, it's just such a highly anticipated film. Yeah, because, you know, I mean, it was one of the first films that obviously put Tom Cruise on the map, but it also, I mean, Top Gun, the first one, is such Americana, like, film classic in a way, you know, like, especially when, I mean, when was it filmed? 1986? 8? Something like that. Wow, I should know this. I should know this.
Something like that.
Yeah. The flying sequences and all of that stuff back in the day, like, that was like things that have never ever been attempted or done before, you know. And it's just such a classic, you know. It's so nostalgic. It is also crazy though, because sometimes I'll talk to people who are younger and they've like never watched the film, but basically like our age and older, it's like I know people who used to watch the film like once a year. Like, it was such a staple, you know. It's so crazy, the different generations. And anyways,
my best friend forced me to watch it recently. He was like, this is my ultimate favorite film, like I haven't seen it in so long. So I was like, oh, okay, because the film was meant to come out in the summer, so I was like, okay, fair enough. And you're absolutely right. I mean, it is such a staple across different age groups even, but then younger, like, they're catching up with it. But I'm so sure that once this movie comes out, they're gonna love it, and they're gonna want to see the original as well.
Right. I hope so. That's definitely, that would be awesome. It was just it was one of those things when I went in audition for it, everybody and their mothers I know had auditioned for it, like, or was auditioning for it. And we did go in knowing that they were looking for pilots, right? But we didn't know anything about the story. We didn't know anything about stuff. And the sides were just like they were the weirdest sides ever, because, you know, it's very just like generic pilot talk, but there's no story.
No idea that it was for that.
We didn't know. We actually did. They did have a code name, but for some reason on all the breakdowns and stuff, it did say Top Gun 2. So we didn't know. But it was just one of those things where it's like, you walk out of that audition not knowing if it went well or not, because there's not that much emoting going on. Like, literally, you're just like talking like you're in the cockpit, and it's like to your left, or like bogey to your right, like very just random lines, you know? And so I left and I was like, that was great, whatever, fine. Like, on to the next. Always, you just let it go. And then I ended up getting a call back and going in and working with the director, which was really great. And also, like, was like, great, that's great, on to the next, which is usually my MO when it comes to auditions. You know, we just audition so much, like, you just have to let it go. You know, you can't hold on to any single audition. Yeah, or else we would just all go insane. And when my team called me and told me I booked it, I was just like, what? It was obviously very exciting, but it was one of those things that I felt like kind of came out of nowhere, because I just auditioned and forgot about it. And it came a couple of weeks later. And, you know, the project is so top secret, and it still is. So there's only so much I can say here today. But
I'm like,
I know it's so top secret, but it was so top secret to the fact that when we started shooting, we didn't even know what roles we were playing. We hadn't seen a script. Like, we like, even the people who were cast, we had no idea what we were in for, like what our character names were, or what the plot was, or what our role, you know, would be in the film. So it was all very super top secret, but it was an awesome experience. I got to train to fly in planes, which was really, really cool. And that's like a known thing because I don't know if you know, but Tom Cruise is like really known for doing all of his own stunts and trying not to use VFX and special effects. So all of the actors trained to be in the air and like to do things, you know, in real time rather than with special effects.
That's crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
First of all, congratulations on landing that role. We obviously don't know exactly what the role is. Even looking on IMDb, I see your name. I'm like, what's her
Yeah,
character?
totally.
There's more. Like, this is literally not just a reflection of the movie itself being top secret, but it's like an actual top secret project. So,
Yeah.
you know, everybody's obviously waiting in anticipation. I think it's awesome. Like, they did drop obviously the trailer and some of the behind the scenes footage in which it is showcasing how you know, some of the actors are having to go up into the what do you call them, the fighter jets. And so
Yes.
that was what I was so curious about, if you had experienced that too, and what was that experience like, and how did you manage to do it, let's say?
Yeah, so the fighter jet experience, oh God, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this.
Okay.
I mean, basically some of the actors got to experience it and some of us didn't.
Okay.
So we experienced training in other types of planes, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. God, that's so cryptic.
But I can imagine. Now I just have to wait and see what the real thing is.
Exactly.
As the viewers and the audiences. So anything you can share about your role at all?
I just play one of the new pilots, which I think has already been released. And it's a really great group of pilots. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
How did you, okay, so obviously because you were auditioning for a pilot role, have you done any flight training or simulation before?
No, nothing at all. Yeah, so it was a totally new experience for me. And I mean, it was, you know, that in itself was already such a great experience. I'm getting to know, you know, the group of young pilots because we shot for so long and we were together all the time. So it was really cool to like develop that relationship with some of the other cast members, which I think, you know, same as like in the film where there's camaraderie and stuff, you know, it sort of was like naturally built and, you know, formed. So yeah.
Family, yeah.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Obviously, what might be on some people's minds is, what was it like working with Tom Cruise or observing him, and any lessons that you might have learned from him?
Yeah, Tom is pretty amazing, actually. It's so crazy because, you know, like, I really feel like he's one of the last bona fide sort of movie stars we have, you know, like these like movie stars. And it's always strange, you know, because you meet some and they could be terrible people or they could be so cool or so nice or whatever, but you just never know what to expect, you know. And he was really, I will say, he was a very giving actor, which given his status, I mean, he's Tom Cruise and worth I don't know how much money, hundreds of millions of billions of dollars, you know, you wouldn't necessarily expect that, you know, but he's such a giving actor. He actually has a great reputation for being very kind on set and being very present, which he is. And he's very hardworking. I was very impressed with just his work ethic. You know, I remember there were a couple of days where, or I'm sorry, a couple of takes where the camera was on us, but he stayed behind the camera and did his lines with us, which usually for like an actor of that caliber, you would have like a stand-in or something, honestly, you know? So like moments like that really touched me because I felt like, oh, wow, he really cares. And he really cares he was very involved in the process, you know, talking about lenses and talking about the shots and, you know, like was very involved and very giving. And so, you know, it was a really cool experience. I did feel like, you know, there were a lot of shots where he would be talking, we would be listening. And it seemed like it was like a master class. You know, it's like weird. It's like, oh, I'm on set, but I feel like I'm in a master class with Tom. How weird, you know, like just watching him do take after take and seeing, you know, sort of what he does and how he changes things per take and stuff like that. It was really cool.
Oh, that's so great to hear, because of course, you know, there's things that people are exposed to from the media, but behind the scenes, literally behind the scenes, there's so much that goes on that is so like phenomenal and exciting. It almost sounds like, you know, he really wants people to be a part of the process, and by him giving his lines, he's like giving that energy and
exactly.
inspiring. So you have mentioned that you have been in the fighter jet, and so what are some of the most embarrassing or like extremely exciting things that you've experienced on set? And this doesn't have to be on Top Gun. This could be on any set or during rehearsal that you've experienced as an actress.
The most embarrassing? Did you just say embarrassing?
Embarrassing or funny moment?
Like embarrassing?
Yeah, we want to hear all the, you know, funny bits.
Oh my God. Okay. So actually this has nothing to do with Top Gun, but this was one of your previous answers that I did not answer at all. Sorry, Yasmine. I do this all the time. I'll start like monologuing and totally didn't even answer your question. When you were like, would you ever go back to Asia? Didn't answer it. But this film, so the answer to that question is yes, I would totally go back for the right project. And last year, I actually went back for a project called The Calm Beyond. And it was directed by this man named Joshua Wang, who's a great friend of mine. And it was his feature debut as a director. And I went back for about a month and a half to shoot this film. And it was actually so awesome because, first of all, it was my very first title lead. Like, I was the lead of this film. And it was just, the lead. Like,
finally embracing the Asian Americanness.
Totally. And it was so crazy for me because it felt like such a full circle moment, because it was exactly 10 years after I had moved to Hong Kong the first time. And I was like, oh my God, the first time I was in Hong Kong, I didn't know anybody. I like had no money. I was just like wandering around the city like a lost child. And 10 years later, I get to come back and shoot a film, be the lead, have like, you know, just like be the head of this production in a sense, you know, where it's like I'm the driving force, you know. It was really awesome. But this movie is called The Calm Beyond, and it is having its world premiere at the Adelaide Film Festival in, I think, a week or 2 weeks. And
is it actually going to be a film festival or virtual?
No, it's a proper film festival. It's one of like a few film festivals in the world that is actually still going on right now, because Australia has crushed it with COVID and they're just living their normal ass lives, unlike us.
They've been very good at being very strict for months and
exactly.
closing off the borders, nobody going in or out for quite a while.
And unfortunately, obviously, I can't be there because Australia wouldn't let me in, which is totally fair. I would not let Americans in, so that's fine. But I will always remember shooting this scene because, so basically the short plot log line of this is, it's like a post-apocalyptic film. Because of how we've treated the environment, different parts of the world have crumbled. Hong Kong is completely submerged underwater and has flooded. And I have lived by myself for a couple of years on the top of a skyscraper surviving.
Oh my God.
And there's like, you know, it shows how this sort of dealing with trauma and dealing with the world basically in this apocalyptic form has affected people. Some people are like looting and violent and trying to survive and all of this stuff. So there's one scene that I was supposed to dive into the water, and I'm a terrible swimmer, which I definitely told Josh. I told him I can swim to save my life.
The director?
What? The director.
The director, okay.
Director. I told him I could swim to save my life, but I'm like, I'm really bad. And I remember it was freezing. I was like, oh God, I don't technically only have one take, but you want to get it the first take because by the time you get wet, I have to go get dry, put on a whole new set of clothes, dry my hair, redo my makeup. Like, obviously we want to try and get it in one take because it's a pain in the ass to try and do it again. I was supposed to dive and the camera was behind me. Oh my God, Yasmine. I just totally, he's like, okay, you got this. I'm like, I got this. Like, action, let's go. He calls action, and I fully just belly flop into the water. Like the most ungraceful motion you have ever seen in your entire life. I'm like,
you've been 2 years up on this tower.
Right? I'm like, I'm
clumsy. Right in there.
Die? Terrible. Absolutely terrible. I was so embarrassed.
Did they make you do it again?
They actually ended up having my stunt double do it because they were like, obviously Kara can't even dive.
I'm like, first time we've seen it. No. Not even gonna bother trying her again to have her take another take. No.
Exactly. They're like, she's gonna fuck it up again. Like, look at her form. Absolutely terrible. No, we're not risking it again. So
that is hilarious. Okay,
that's sort of something that comes to mind.
You had to endure that. In terms of work balance, romance and life and social, it's how do you is there any like special regime or like I don't know, food, nutrition, workouts, or like you have a set morning routine or something that keeps you in check and intact?
Totally. I think for me, something I learned, especially in the last couple of years, is that finding a genuine connection between two people, whether it's romantic or friends, is very rare as we get older. Because I think just as we get older, we understand ourselves more, and it's a less of like trying to fit somebody else's idea of you and just being exactly who you are. But if you can find that genuine connection, it's so rare, including in friendships, especially in female friendships, And I think something I learned throughout the years is that like you just have to put in the effort. There is no shortcut. And I would say, pretty good about reaching out to people and texting and setting a time for coffee and actually doing it. I mean, we all know, we're all guilty of that LA, like, oh my God, miss you so much. Can't wait to catch up. Let's do that soon. Okay, bye. And then like, obviously it never happens. We all do it.
Years pass by.
Yeah, we all do it. We're all guilty of it. But I think in that sense, I think if, being the proactive one and like being the one that puts in the effort, which I have no issue with, has been really helpful to develop these relationships and make sure that these support systems are so strong. Because I really think there's no shortcut. You have to have those coffees and happy hour dates or Zoom dates and crying at each other's house and watching 16 episodes of a show together and like, like all of that stuff needs to be there. And I think for just work and like my life and self-care, I think I don't really necessarily have like a regiment. I think something I'm very happy that I do, and I've noticed that some of my friends struggle with, is that I don't feel guilty about self-care, which we've been talking about this a lot during quarantine, because like I was saying, this new subject where people are like, oh my God, I feel like I'm just doing nothing all day and I'm so unproductive and I like haven't gotten anything done and all of that stuff. I take a nap every single day. Oh, maybe that's my regimen. Yasmine. I take a nap every single day, no fail, obviously, unless I'm working and I'm on set, but every single day.
Oh no, nap time on set.
Yeah, sorry guys. I've been with you for 2 hours.
Sleeping beauty time.
Yeah. I will nap for like anywhere between 1 to 3 hours every day.
Wow.
I know, like it seems long, but once again, see, this is something for me I don't feel guilty about. And I know some of my friends like will feel guilty about stuff like that because they feel like, oh, I feel like I've done nothing all day. I don't feel guilty about it. I love napping. I do it every day.
I love that. No, it's actually really great. I think we often forget the power of rest and how much that gives to us. So, for some, it may be like taking a walk for 1 or 3 hours, right? And that reinvigorates their energy. And for some, it's sleeping. And so that's like a really great tip. Like there's nothing to feel guilty about in terms of rest. And I feel like I can relate to you in that sense that in this time, of course, in quarantine, because there's nowhere we can go or do, I've taken on more rest and I've noticed my body shape change and the way that I function has changed. And so really,
I mean, you are so active though. I see you're like, because you're a certified yoga instructor too now, right?
Yes.
Oh my God. I mean, it's incredible.
Thank you. No, I mean,
everything that I've been watching you do.
Thank you. And that for me, again, is like something that I like to do. And I instead try to sleep longer instead of because I cannot nap. I wish I could nap. Like I literally am so envious of people who nap in the middle of the day.
I know. It's truly a gift that I hope never goes away. I mean, it's funny. Like my friends know not to text me between 1 and 4 because they know, like I will not respond. Yeah. Some like usually it'll be like 1 to 2 or 2 to 4 or like something in between that. But they always know all the group chats I'm on.
I've heard, or I read actually, that a study said if you are napping, you should nap before 4 p.m. No later than that, because otherwise your sleep cycle at night isn't as
right.
So
people ask me that all the time too. It doesn't affect my nighttime sleep at all, because if it would, then I probably wouldn't be napping as much, but it really doesn't. Like I go to sleep at 10 or 11 just freaking fine.
Oh, that's perfect. Okay, so you've mentioned before we head up, because you have mentioned slightly about, you know, how the industry has shut down in Hollywood for 6 months, and there's, you know, fellow actors and such who, or a lot of people that are struggling. So what advice could you give to aspiring actors who've wanted to become actors and now it's really challenging in this time, and also those who are struggling?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's just, you know, Hollywood is sort of just starting back up now. Everybody's going back to work. I go back to work in a week, and I think it's obviously a whole new world. Everybody's not sure about what this new normal is going to look like, but also for new actors, you know, it is a little scary to think about, like, okay, are they going to be cutting out like a lot, you know, of co-stars and stuff? Like maybe there won't be as many because they're trying to limit the people on set and stuff like that. And like you were saying, you know, I think everybody's just tiptoeing right now because nobody knows what's going to happen. Like maybe there isn't that big of an effect at all after we get through this first hurdle. But I think for new actors, my advice would always be, I feel like people need to find different things to feed their soul and to feed their life experience. I know, you know, there's a lot of people who say like, okay, you can't have a plan B. Like if you want to be an actor and that's your plan A, don't have a plan B, because if you have a plan B, you'll fall back on it and all that stuff, which I totally understand where they're coming from when it comes to that. But I also am of the mind of like, okay, first of all, everybody needs to pay their bills and everybody needs to live. If you have a side job that does that for you, but also helps take your mind off of, you know, this lack of maybe opportunities you're getting in the acting sphere, I honestly think is so helpful psychologically. Because I feel like for new and aspiring actors, when they put all their eggs in one basket, every opportunity is so precious that the pressure and anxiety almost backfires, because everything is so precious. You're like, oh my God, I've only gotten one audition this month. Like I have to nail this audition. I have to book this job. And we all know booking the job sometimes has nothing to do with your talent. We all know this. Obviously talent is a part of it, but timing, look, type, whatever, you know, there's so many things that go into it, right? That are out of your control, which is why I think usually, you know, my advice would be always to find that other thing that feeds your soul, or a couple of things, and don't feel guilty about doing it. You know, like, first of all, whether or not it's helping you practically or logistically, great. But even if it's like, you know, just so you have somewhere to be 3 or 4 hours a day, and not like, this isn't your end all be all, I think it actually is super helpful psychologically. It has nothing to do with you not committing to your craft 100% though. You know, I still think you can absolutely do that still, and yet still making sure you're taking care of yourself, so that it's not just this end all be all, so precious. Every time you don't get something, it's crushing, because I think that's how people get burnt out.
That's a really great point that you've raised. And I like to add to that, I feel like if you have to have that side gig, because you need to be able to survive, because otherwise you're going to have bad feelings surrounding money, income, your craft.
Oh my God, 100%.
Yeah, it's almost to just see it as a means to an end.
Yes.
Able to support yourself within the process of what you are trying to accomplish and to become an actor. So that's like a really good point. You put all your eggs in one basket. That's where so much pressure does come into play. So feeding the soul, especially now, is like so important. And I think this is where we really get to have the opportunity of either diminishing ourselves or defining ourselves. And you just have that choice of what path you're going to go down. Really great advice. So before we head on out, 3 phrases in Chinese that you can teach us that are used in China, or I don't know, so, something that is like very common to say and that's a nice thing to say.
Common to say or a nice thing to say. Okay, so the first phrase I can teach you is 好棒啊.
好棒哈.
Yeah, 好棒啊.
好棒哈.
Yeah.
I'll get there.
Perfect. Not bad. That basically means like so great, like so amazing, so awesome.
好棒哈.
There you go. 好棒啊. No H at the third.
好棒啊.
Exactly. 好棒啊. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what that means. You said, I am a big foodie. So the other one would be 吃饭了吗?
Oh my God.
One more time. 吃
饭
了吗?
吃饭了吗?
Yeah,
I love
nice.
food.
Yeah, that basically means have you eaten yet?
Oh.
So in China, most of the time when people greet, like, of course, it's like 你好, whatever, but most people will be like, oh, 吃饭了吗? That's almost like just as common as a greeting because, food is so important in Chinese culture. So the question is always, oh, have you eaten? You go to any, like, auntie's house, they're always like, have you eaten?
No way.
吃饭了吗? Mm-hmm.
Oh, that is hilarious. So as soon as you say, and this is what I know, 你好,什么名字 Yasmine? And then you say, how are you? What's how are you?
你好吗?
你好吗?
Mm-hmm.
上了吗? Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to have to write this down because that is hilarious.
吃饭了吗?
上饭了吗?
Yeah.
Okay, that's so
It's a very common greeting. Like, always people asking, have you eaten?
You know what? I feel like we should incorporate that in every language. That should be
Agreed.
That should be legal. That should be a thing.
Agreed. Absolutely.
I also heard, as a final, I heard there was, is it when you say goodbye to a person, you wish them prosperity or something? Is that in Chinese? Or how do you say goodbye to a person? It was nice seeing you.
Just 再见.
Say that again.
再见.
再见.
Oh yeah, that was good pronunciation.
Oh, thank you. Well,
nice one.
再见.
Yeah. Yeah. 再见. Yeah, we just say 再见. I mean, there are a lot of phrases in Chinese always talking about prosperity because everybody just wants everybody to get rich. That's like the best, like
That's what
sort
I heard
of
about the culture.
Yeah. But
that's funny. Well, before you head on out, what are some, because you did mention you're going to start working next week, what are some upcoming exciting projects that you have going on or anything else that you would like to share with the audience?
So I had sort of mentioned it earlier. Everybody watch out for the Calm Beyond. I really hope once it starts its film festival circuit, I'm not really sure where it's going to go, but I have very high hopes for it. It's a project I'm very, very proud of. I start shooting for Good Trouble Season 3 next week. So you can expect Good Trouble Season 3 to be back in 2021. Top Gun will hopefully be released in June of 2021. It has been pushed back twice, but, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think I even saw July 2021 now.
Yeah, exactly. And Goliath, I'm also going back to set for that next week as well. And that'll be the final season of Goliath. And that should also be on the Amazon platform in 2021. So apparently 2021 is the year.
Yeah, 2020 was not the year at all, but 2021 is the year. So that's
it's got to make up. It's got a lot to make up for.
A lot, yeah. Well, it's really exciting to know that you're going back to work, that things are moving and shaking. Obviously, a lot coming up in 2021. So how can people follow you and follow your journey and make sure that they're keeping tabs on all the releases that are coming out?
So my Instagram, what is handle? See, oh my God, am I a grandma? I couldn't even think of the word. Yes. My Instagram handle is The Real Kara Wang. There is no fake Kara Wang. It's just The Real Kara Wang. That's just what the screen name is now. And yeah, you can follow most of my stuff there. I usually use that to post about work. So all of the new things coming up will be on there.
Amazing. Well, it's been such a joy and pleasure to see you, Kara. Incredible to know that you're doing so well as well and always shining as you are. So I'm really excited for your projects to come out and see you 2021.
2021.
So I gotta say, see it. Did I get that right?
再见. Close. Thank you so much for having me, Yasmine. This was like such a treat, honestly. Such a great time.
Thank you. No, it's honestly like it's such a joy to be able to see you in this time. So thank you so much for that time again.
Of course.
Okay.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for joining us here today. If you liked that episode, please like, comment, and share, and subscribe to this channel so that you know when the next conversation is up. I love to hear your thoughts and engage, so please don't be a stranger. Cheers.